The blaring wail of sirens cut through the summer heat like a chainsaw through silence. Neighbors paused, hot dogs halfway to mouths. Kids stopped mid-cannonball. Music screeched to a halt. Everyone turned to the street, where two police cruisers rolled up with the urgency of a drug bust. I dropped my water gun, heart pounding, not from fear, but from the sheer, glorious absurdity of it all. Karen stood proudly at the sidewalk, arms crossed like a villain who just successfully summoned the final boss. But then the cop stepped out, scanned the festive scene, grinned and shouted, "Is that DJ Ricky? Man, I love this guy. Mind if we join in?" The music roared back to life. Karen's jaw, I swear, hit the pavement. That was the day my too-fun pool party became legendary. It all started a few weeks ago when I decided to throw a summer bash. Not just any backyard gathering, mind you. This was envisioned as a full-blown, immersive pool party experience. I'm talking foam machines creating sudsy mountains, floating disco balls scattering rainbows, a live DJ booth perched precariously on a giant inflatable flamingo, neon lights dancing on the water surface like electric eels, and a grill lineup that would make any food truck rally weep with envy. I'd invited every family on our block, from the Bennetts with their 4 boisterous, water-loving kids to old Mr. Robbins, who just wanted a socially acceptable reason to dust off his vintage flamingo-patterned swim trunks. Everyone, it seemed, was thrilled, except for one person. Karen, you know the type. Pruned, helmet-like bob haircut, high-waisted khaki capris that screamed, "I mean business," sunglasses too large for her face, and a clipboard that appeared to be surgically and permanently attached to her arm. As the self-appointed head of the HOA, a position she wielded with the iron fist of a feudal lord, she treated our pleasant, unassuming neighborhood like it was Buckingham Palace, and she was its queen, its enforcer, its sole arbiter of taste and decorum. She had a rule for everything. No lawn flamingos, ironic, given DJ Ricky's noble steed. No basketball hoops visible from the street. No garage doors left open for longer than precisely 8 minutes. She timed it, I swear. So, when she witnessed the bouncy castle-sized inflatable water slide inflating in my yard, and a professional DJ setting up his gleaming equipment next to my meticulously arranged poolside snack bar, she almost fainted. Or at least, her face contorted into an expression that suggested imminent apoplexy. I saw her, a shadowy figure peering through her pristine blinds as we transformed my backyard into a temporary aquatic wonderland. At first, I charitably thought maybe she was just curious, perhaps even a little envious. But as more guests arrived, their laughter and excited chatter filling the air, and the energy amped up with each passing minute, her face grew more and more twisted with what I can only describe as fun-induced fury. She finally came stomping over, brandishing her precious, laminated HOA manual like it was the 10 Commandments carved onto stone tablets. "This is a residential neighborhood, not a public water park," she snapped, her voice practically vibrating with ill-concealed rage, her clipboard quivering. I calmly smiled, a beacon of serene preparedness, and handed her a neatly collated copy of the city permit I'd diligently filed weeks ago. Everything was approved. The noise levels, within reasonable daytime limits, of course, the gathering size, the music. I'd even gone the extra mile and arranged for overflow parking at a nearby community lot to avoid street congestion. "It's all legal, Karen," I said, my voice dripping with forced sweetness. "You're welcome to join. By the way, we've got an excellent selection of popsicles. Blue raspberry is particularly popular." Karen's left eye twitched, a telltale sign of impending meltdown. "This isn't over," she hissed, her voice a low growl, before turning on her heel with military precision and storming back to her beige-colored lair. She vanished behind her aggressively pruned rose bushes like a B-movie villain retreating to plot her next nefarious move. I honestly, naively, thought that might be the end of it. But when it comes to Karens, logic is often merely a polite suggestion, not an unbreakable rule. An hour into the party, things were in full, glorious swing. Kids, shrieking with delight, splashed and cannonballed while adults, liberated from their weekday woes, lounged on pool floats shaped like giant tacos and majestic unicorns. DJ Ricky, a local legend in the making, dropped beat after infectious beat while strategically placed fog cannons puffed ethereal mist into the sun-drenched air. My cousin Omar, a culinary wizard in his own right, flipped burgers with the practiced flair of a seasoned pro. Even the local ice cream truck guy, sensing an opportunity, had parked nearby, generously giving out free popsicles to anyone sporting one of my hastily made pool party crew wristbands. The atmosphere was electric, a palpable current of joy and camaraderie. People laughed, they danced, they splashed. For the first time in a long, long time, the neighborhood felt truly, vibrantly alive. And that's when the sirens came. The moment those cruisers, lights blazing, rolled into view, you could feel the energy dip, the joyous bubble pop. Parents instinctively pulled their kids closer, their faces etched with concern. The music, which moments before had been the heartbeat of the party, abruptly cut off. DJ Ricky looked like he was about to be unceremoniously deported. And there, standing front and center on the sidewalk, was Karen. One hand was dramatically pointing at my house, her posture a caricature of righteous indignation, as if she were reenacting a pivotal scene from a courtroom drama. She didn't just want the party shut down. She wanted me buried under a mountain of citations, my name forever tarnished in the annals of HOA history. 2 officers stepped out of the cruisers. One was tall and burly, the kind of guy who looked like he could bench press a small vehicle without breaking a sweat. The other was younger, with a slightly bewildered expression as he scanned the unexpectedly festive scene in front of him. Foam, like errant clouds, gently floated in the air. Laughter, now tinged with apprehension, hung awkwardly in the sudden silence. "Got a call about a wild disturbance," the tall officer said, his voice gruff as he flipped through a notepad. "Possible illegal activity, unsafe crowding, noise violations, public intoxication." He rattled off a litany of alleged offenses. I stepped forward, projecting a calm I didn't entirely feel. "Officers, all permits are in order. There's no alcohol, no drugs, just good, clean, albeit foamy fun." Karen exploded, her voice shrill. "This is a mockery of order. There are children swimming like hooligans. There's foam everywhere. The music, it was deafening." That's when the younger officer squinted toward the pool, a look of dawning recognition on his face. "Wait a minute. Is that my nephew, Billy?" A small, dripping kid waved enthusiastically from a donut-shaped float. "He told me about this party. Said it was going to be epic." The older officer blinked, then a slow chuckle rumbled in his chest. "Honestly," he said, looking around at the happy, albeit slightly subdued crowd, "this looks safer and more organized than most of the 4th of July barbecues I've been to." Karen, sputtering, tried to escalate. You're not going to shut this down? This is chaos. This is an affront to suburban decency." The older officer stepped back, took another long look around, a smirk playing on his lips. He then turned to me. "Well, ma'am, or sir, do you happen to have any more of those burgers left? Smells pretty good from here." Omar, ever the opportunist, never one to miss a beat, called out from the grill. "Just flipped a fresh batch, officers. Come and get 'em." The older officer looked at his partner, who grinned and shrugged. Then he looked back at me. "Resume party operations," he declared, his voice carrying a note of amusement. "Just, try to keep the music down after 10 p.m. city ordinance, you know." Cheers erupted. DJ Ricky gave the turntable a celebratory spin, and a fresh beat dropped. The kids, with whoops of joy, dove back into the water. Karen, her face a roadmap of crimson fury and utter humiliation, turned and stomped back to her house, slamming her front door so I didn't need to be a psychic to decipher the subtext. Karen had just taken the L of her HOA career, a public, foam-soaked humiliation, and now she was gearing up for a full-scale, scorched-earth retaliation campaign. She was embarrassed, she was outmaneuvered, and most dangerously, she had been made to look foolish in front of both her long-suffering neighbors and, crucially, law enforcement. And people like Karen, when cornered, don't lick their wounds quietly. They sharpen their claws and prepare for war. Later that day, I attended the emergency HOA meeting, not out of obligation, but out of a morbid, slightly gleeful curiosity. It was being held at the community center, a sterile, soulless building usually reserved for sparsely attended bake sales and agonizingly dull budget reviews. The turnout, however, was massive. Every neighbor who had basked in the glory of the legendary pool party was there, their expressions a mixture of solidarity, apprehension, and a touch of rebellious amusement. Karen sat at the front, enthroned like a tyrant queen surveying her rebellious subjects, flanked by the other two long-suffering board members. Nancy, who looked like she'd rather be undergoing a root canal without anesthesia, and Gary, who seemed to have perfected the art of sleeping with his eyes open. Karen began the meeting with a thin, reptilian smile and a thick stack of freshly printed paper. Her voice was sickly sweet, a saccharine coating over a core of pure venom. She launched into a dramatic, rambling speech about how the neighborhood was under attack by rampant disorder and flagrant irresponsibility, and how the recent unfortunate events, i.e. my epic party, were a grave threat to our property values and suburban harmony. Then, with a flourish, she rolled out her bombshell, a hastily drafted list of emergency amendments to the HOA rules. The new regulations were so absurd, so draconian, they bordered on parody. No amplified music outdoors, at any time, ever. No pool parties with more than 10 people. No foam, no bubbles, no water slides, no inflatable flamingos, a direct hit. All pool-related activity must be completed before 5 p.m. sharp, and under no circumstances could guests be invited from outside the immediate neighborhood without prior, written, notarized board approval, submitted in triplicate, no less than 2 full weeks in advance. I raised my hand, my expression one of polite inquiry. "Karen," I asked, my voice deceptively mild, "who exactly decided on these rather comprehensive new rules? Was there a community vote I missed?" Karen's eyes flashed. "These were drafted under emergency executive authority, as per the bylaws." "Actually," I replied, my voice still calm, "there's no provision for emergency executive authority in the current HOA bylaws. I read them twice. Page 37, subsection C, clearly outlines the amendment process." A murmur, like a rising tide, spread through the crowd. Some of the neighbors began flipping through the printouts Karen had so generously distributed, their brows furrowed in confusion. A few started whispering, then talking in low, urgent tones. Karen, flustered but determined, pushed forward, pretending not to hear the growing dissent. "These rules will go into effect immediately. Violations will result in significant fines and possible suspension of HOA privileges, including access to the community tennis courts," which, by the way, no one had used in years. One mom, a usually quiet woman named Sarah, stood up, her voice trembling slightly. "So my son, Timmy, he can't have his birthday pool party next month? With his cousins? They live one town over." Karen didn't flinch, not without board review and a formal written application, submitted precisely 2 weeks in advance, outlining the nature of the celebration and a complete guest list for vetting. A dad, Mark, who was known for his weekend barbecues, followed up. "What about cookouts? What if I just play some music from my little Bluetooth speaker in my own backyard?" Karen smirked, a truly unpleasant expression. "If it can be heard from the property line, it's too loud. It's a violation." The room grew louder. the murmurs transforming into grumbles of disbelief and outright anger as people started to realize the full, suffocating scope of Karen's proposed New World Order. I saw faces twist from confusion to annoyance, then to outright defiance. Then Karen, in her infinite wisdom, made the biggest tactical blunder of the night. She tried to get her two puppets on the board, the beleaguered Nancy and the somnambulant Gary, to vote for the emergency amendments right then and there, to railroad them through before the rebellion could fully coalesce. Gary, still half asleep, mumbled a yes before he even seemed to realize what he was voting for. Nancy hesitated, her face a mask of discomfort. But ultimately, after Karen shot her a glare that could curdle milk, she reluctantly raised her hand. "Motion passes," Karen declared, banging an imaginary gavel. 3 out of 5 votes. Majority achieved. The new rules are official, effective immediately. As the meeting chaotically adjourned, people walked out in a state of stunned, muttering silence. The summer that had just begun, full of promise and sunshine, now felt like it had been summarily canceled by royal decree. Karen stood outside the community center, clipboard in hand, a smug, victorious smirk plastered on her face. I didn't say a word. I just walked past her, letting the gears in my mind whir and click. She wanted war. Fine, but I wasn't going to fight her with pitchforks and angry shouts. I was going to win the way I always did. With facts, with meticulous preparation, with a healthy dose of creativity, and just enough carefully orchestrated chaos to make it thoroughly entertaining. When I got home, I went straight to my dusty file cabinet. Buried under old tax returns, appliance warranties, and various home repair receipts was a thick, slightly yellowed manila envelope labeled "Property Deed and Original Land Records. Do not discard." I pulled it out, my heart thumping with a mixture of hope and trepidation. My house was one of the oldest in the neighborhood, a relic from a simpler time. Long before the HOA was ever conceived, before the first cookie-cutter model homes were even a blueprint, this property, my property, had stood here, a solitary sentinel. I'd vaguely remembered my dad telling me once, with a twinkle in his eye, "We were here before all this HOA nonsense, son. Remember that." I'd never thought that historical tidbit would ever truly matter. Until now. I carefully scanned the faded, typewritten papers, my finger tracing the archaic legal jargon. And there it was, clear as day, a beautifully preserved legal loophole. My property, including the backyard, the pool, and the driveway, had been officially registered and deeded years before the Homeowners Association was formally established and its bylaws ratified. That meant one glorious, game-changing thing. Their rules, their ridiculous, fun-crushing regulations, did not legally apply to me, not unless I had voluntarily, in writing, opted into the HOA agreement when I purchased the house, which, thanks to my father's foresight, I hadn't. In fact, stapled to the original deed was a signed, notarized exemption on file, dating back to when the HOA was first formed, stating unequivocally that the property owner at the time, my dad, had explicitly refused membership and all associated obligations. The next morning, with a spring in my step and a mischievous glint in my eye, I made 10 certified copies of those precious documents. Then, with a flourish, I sent one meticulously packaged set to each member of the HOA board. Karen, Nancy, Gary, and the 2 rarely seen, mostly silent members, by registered mail, return receipt requested. No angry diatribe, no lengthy legal arguments, just cold, hard, irrefutable facts. On the cover letter, I simply wrote, "For your legal records and future reference, HOA jurisdiction, as per the enclosed foundational property deeds and exemption clauses, does not and has never applied to the property located at my address. All current and future attempts to enforce HOA rules, regulations, or fines on this residence will be met with formal legal challenge. Thank you for your understanding." Short, sweet, and utterly, beautifully nuclear. But I wasn't done. Oh no! Karen had